Hey y'all, it's Mr. Bierbauer again with another art lesson. This week we're going to be focusing a little bit on a new artist. His name is James Rizzi. And as you can see, here's a picture of him with some of his artwork on a car. Um, I think he's a really neat artist. He does a lot of fun stuff, and it'll give us a little bit of a break to switch up and try something different this week. So you'll just need your paper, your pencil, and your coloring materials, and you'll be good to go. We're going to start with our artist promise, like always. So, as artists, we will always try our best, respect ourselves, our friends, and our artwork, take responsibility, imagine new things, support each other, and of course, take time to clean up. Our I can statement today is I can draw a cityscape inspired by James Rizzi. So, our I can statement is I can draw a cityscape inspired by James Rizzi. So, really quickly, y'all, what is a cityscape? Does anybody know? I'll give you a hint. Scape is part of a word we have heard before. You remember doing landscapes? Remember, landscapes were a picture of the outdoors, usually like maybe a countryside, a forest. A cityscape is basically a landscape that's set in a city. So right here is an example of one of James Rizzi's cityscapes. If you were trying to describe this to somebody, how would you describe it? Maybe you'll use words like cartoony, maybe funny or silly. There's lots of patterns and different details, and it's abstract because it's a little bit realistic, but it's got a lot of details that wouldn't really be there. And if you look, it looks like this might even be a 3D artwork because it looks like there's some shadows behind parts of it. And James Rizzi did both 2D, so completely flat, and then 3D pieces of art. So this one might pop out just a little bit. This one is called Visit My Friendly City, and he created this one in 1995. So, like I said, here's a cityscape. It's a picture of a city or a city landscape. This one says, my city doesn't sleep, but it will weep, smile, laugh, and cry, and say goodbye to a changing sky. I really like this one because he has so many different types of buildings, lots of different types of personalities, it looks like. One of James Rizzi's things that he really did was he loved putting faces on objects or things that would not normally have faces, such as all these buildings. Now, James Rizzi was born in 1950, and he passed away in 2011, so he was 61 years old. He was born and grew up in Brooklyn, New York. We've studied a couple other artists who were around New York and Brooklyn specifically, like Jean-Michel Basquiat. And we looked a little bit at an Andy Warhol painting last week when we talked about or recently when we talked about the Campbell soup cans. So, James Rizzi was a pop artist, a painter, a sculptor, and a graphic designer. His cityscapes were inspired by New York City, his favorite place in the whole world. So here's another. This one's called Take the A Train to Harlem. Harlem's part of New York, and the A Train is one of the specific subways. So again, you can see all these different personalities on these buildings. It's very cartoony. And when we do ours, we're going to make sure we are really creative with our cartoon artwork as well. Here's another one. This one is even bigger. There's so much stuff going on. We can take a minute and just look, see if you see anything cool in it. I really like his cars that he did, and just so many different shapes. I see they're mostly organic shapes, so they're not like squares and triangles and circles as much in this one as they are like blobs and squiggles and things like that. This one is actually a real building that he designed based off of his artwork. This one is in Germany, and you can see it's the same style as his flat artwork, but it's an entire building. And it's kind of neat. You can see some of the other buildings nearby, like it looks like maybe that's an old-timey church right beside it. And you can see it looks really, really different from what's around it. So I said that James Rizzi was a pop artist. So let's talk about pop art really quickly, and then we're going to start doing our work. Pop art became popular in the 1950s and 1960s, so around the same time as the op art that we've been doing. And usually it was simple and bold images of everyday things painted in really bright colors. So it was usually, yeah, things we would see every day, stuff you wouldn't think about being really fancy artwork. It could be pictures of advertisements or the labels of products, like Andy Warhol did his soup cans. It could be celebrity photos. Andy Warhol did a whole series of Marilyn Monroe photos in different colors, and comic strips. And this is a famous one by Roy Lichtenstein. It's called Explosion. Roy Lichtenstein really liked focusing on comics, and he would take like a little square of a comic and blow it up to a huge picture so you could see all the dots in it, because back then all the comics were printed just with little dots of color. And so he would make these huge pictures that focus on something so tiny we wouldn't normally think of as artwork. So I'm just going to show y'all step by step on here how to do your James Rizzi cityscape. Basically, you're just going to start with rectangles going across your paper. So these are going to be some of the buildings. So you want some tall ones, some short ones, some skinny ones, and they're all going to connect to each other. So I just started on one side and did a rectangle, and then I did another rectangle connected to it and kept going all the way across. And I'm going to show these pictures. If I'm talking too much, you can fast forward. If you need to pause to catch up, you can do that too, and just keep it at your own pace. So after you have your first set of buildings, we're going to go back in and put some more behind. So these will be kind of in the middle ground or the background, and they'll just kind of be stacked on top of or in behind your other buildings. So I did the same thing. I started on one side and worked my way over. You don't have to fill this whole second row. You can just do some of them. It'll make it more interesting. We'll have more buildings to design. And then after that is when you get to start really being creative. We're going to start adding details on the roofs of our buildings. You can just do simple shapes. You can see I did a lot of triangles, some squares, circles, rectangles, anything you want to make the tops of your buildings more interesting, so it's not just rectangles. And you don't have to put them on all of them. You can put them on some. You can see I left a couple without tops. I could have left more, but I thought this was a good amount. So go on and do some of those. All right. After you have all your shapes, we got to pause here for a second and look at some faces. These are a bunch of faces in his style. So if you need to, in a minute, come back to these, you can. But just here's tons of faces. You can see mostly he would just do eyes of different shapes, really simple noses, and then a basic mouth. So, some are happy, some are sad. There's some that look scared or angry. You can do ones like this, or you can do your own style faces. But what you're going to do is you're going to take faces like these and then just start putting them on your buildings. So I have a sleepy one up in the top, and then I have one that looks kind of like a jack-o'-lantern. I got like a kissy face, one that looks maybe like a clown, one with spiral eyes, got some with glasses, some mad ones over towards the side. I even did a little cat face. Just do whatever kind of faces you want. And this probably will take the longest. So again, pause it if you need to, and then get caught up. After that, we can start adding more details to our buildings, like windows and doors and things buildings would have. I put some on some of them. I didn't put them on all of them. I made sure I did different colors. I did different sizes of doors, numbers of windows. Some of the buildings, I just put some lines on there for some details. So again, this will be another part that will take a while. Don't worry about making them super straight, because again, these are cartoons, so they are going to look more organic. Like you can see, especially on the one with that kind of jack-o'-lantern face, those rectangles are not perfectly straight, and that's all right. Take a minute to get these done, and then we can keep looking. All right, finally, after you have your faces all drawn on there, it's just time to color. And really, each building, you can just do one color for the building and then maybe another color for the windows and doors, just however you want to color. I just tried to make sure when I did it that I spread my colors around. I didn't want a lot of the same color right beside each other to make it more interesting. In some places, I use complementary colors. So I made sure I used colors that were really stand out beside each other. But go on and just finish these up. I didn't do a background because I didn't have a lot of room, but you could definitely do a background up there or just color in the sky. And I hope you guys have fun with this. I thought it was a really cool project to do. And I just can't wait to see what y'all come up with. All right, y'all have a great week. Thank you.